in this game, everybody's tough. Toughness only takes you so far. So basing your fight strategy around being tough, well, people who lean on that don't tend to last too long. They're like fireworks. They'll come and they'll go.
Welcome to the Science of Building Champions podcast, where your host Don Heatrick chats with top-level fighters and coaches, diving into their stories to discover what makes champions.
Today, I'm happy to be joined by Rich Cadden, former 2-times Muay Thai world champion, performance coach and chief instructor at his own gym, Chokdee Academy in York in the UK. Not only that, but also a former railway engineer, a presenter and commentator at live Muay Thai and MMA events, a mind coach, a UFC Europe fighter safety commissioner, and recently a veteran Muay Thai title holder after getting back into the ring after 11 years out, and with 20 kilos to lose in just 15 weeks. So, with all of that, there's really so many directions we can go today, Rich. And thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be on.
Brilliant. Now, you've had your fight. We're going to, I'm sure, circle back to that. But I want to start really with how you got into Muay Thai in the first place. Now, I know you actually started, it was kickboxing, wasn't it, in York before you even moved to Bad Company Gym and Leeds?
Yeah, so it starts a little bit before then as well. So I started doing judo when I was about 8 years old. I've been into martial arts and that kind of thing for quite a while. And then I was playing rugby. I played rugby through to a professional level. Came through the academy ranks and all the boys levels through the city squad, up to getting a 1-year contract playing professionally. And then as there was a change of management at the rugby club, and they cancelled all the 1-year contracts. I went back to playing amateur rugby, and I didn't particularly enjoy the amateurish attitude that some of the guys were taking. So kind of dived into, started having a look around for other sports. And the thing that kind of triggered me into it was having a look at the Vale Tudo World Championships in 1996, I think it was. I got a video from HMV, and the closest thing that I could find to Vale Tudo at that point was the local kickboxing gym. I started kickboxing, and then from there, I kind of gradually progressed. Had a look around. I started training with Andy Wilby and Pierre Mahon in York. It was after probably 5-6 months training, and I had a couple of fights within that. I then moved over to Bad Company and then spent the rest of my career at Bad Company Gym.
And with Bad Company, you started training there. Obviously, that was a shift from everything else that you'd been doing with kickboxing or any of these other martial arts you've been playing around with.
Yeah.
And it was Muay Thai that you'd gone into.
Yeah.
How did that transition feel to you? What was the draw? Why did you feel that Muay Thai was kind of what you wanted to settle on?
Basically, it was the full contact nature of it. So I've been kickboxing for a while. I've had a play with this kind of flick boxing, kickboxing stuff. I got disqualified from a couple of competitions for hitting too hard, which I really struggled to kind of get my head around, because I was seeing it as a fight. I was used to having a scrap on the rugby pitch every week, but to get told off or disqualified for hitting too hard, there was just a major disconnect there. So that was the experience that I had, and then enjoying the full contact nature of it. And then when I got into it, it was because it's a weight category sport. I thought it was a bonus that I was fighting someone my own size for a change. I used to play scrum half, so I was the little dude in the middle of the rugby pitch, up against big second rowers all the time. And then when I started Thai boxing and found it was a weight category sport, I was rubbing my hands together, going, "Yes, I'm fighting another little dude." So yeah, that was the start to it.
And with Bad Company being such a stable of champions as well, when you started doing your Muay Thai, was the objective in your mind when you're training, I'm training to compete and become a champion, or was it just I'm just training for the fun of things here?
It was training to compete. Basically, one of the reasons why I moved over to Bad Company was that I started training with Pierre and Andy in York, and they were saying like we can organise maybe 3-4 fights a year, and I was like, oh right, okay. So basically, I'm used to having a scrap on a rugby pitch every week. I want to fight every week. Like I want to have in 3-4 fights a month. And probably not realising the intensity that I was looking for. But Pierre says, well, I can't quite deliver that, but I know a man who can. Pass me over to Richard Smith. And then Richard was like, yeah, okay, let's get cracking. We'll fire you off and chuck you into for a lot of fights, and then we'll learn as we go.
And that learning as you go, it actually took you to Thailand relatively early as well, didn't it?
Yeah, very, very quickly. So within like the first year, I had the opportunity to go out there and start training out there. I was actually as I started Thai boxing and training regularly over at Bad Company. I was also into my surfing at the same time. So we'd have like maybe once a month over to Cadden Bay over in Scarborough, which was bloody freezing, surfing in the North Sea. And then we'd have the August bank holiday down in Newquay. And we'd have like 3 or 4 days down there. And so that was my kind of dipping my finger into surfing. Was watching I basically picked up the kind of surfing lifestyle, and I enjoyed the surfing lifestyle rather than the actual surfing itself. So yeah, just kind of wearing all the gear and having that like more of a kind of fashion thing. Then watching the videos, we watched a video called The Endless Summer, and basically that was following the waves around the world. And I had a 6-month tour going out to Thailand, and then all the way around. So kind of Malaysia, Singapore, down into Australia, over to New Zealand, back up Fiji, Hawaii, LA, then back across, back to London. So it was I did that over a 6-month period. But the actual opportunity to get out to Thailand, I basically dropped in with all the different martial arts as I went around there. So the fact that I'd actually started Thai boxing and then the first place I was going was Thailand was just like a blessing in disguise. It was just kind of the stars aligned and the opportunities aligned, and that was it. So yeah, that was my very first actual experience of going to Rajadamnern. And that was when I first walked into Rajadamnern Stadium. When I went ringside, so walking through those kind of curtain doors, then the Thai oil smell hitting me, hearing all the guys like chanting in tongues and cheering and rewarding the technique rather than just supporting the fighter. And the understanding kind of more about the betting culture and stuff like that was like one of my first experiences as well. So that was really good.
So we kind of touched on there really what you kind of loved and appreciated about Muay Thai at the start. Is that kind of nailed there, or would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, that was it. It's always been a sporting adventure for me. It's always been that kind of personal challenge that I've enjoyed, rather than seeing it as a fight, seeing it as a sporting context, and really embracing that sporting attitude. That carried over really well from obviously my rugby background and that kind of thing. And I think that was one of the, like I said, when I went from playing professionally to playing amateur, it was the amateurish attitude that I didn't like, but also the professionalism towards my training that I brought into Thai boxing. Because around that time there wasn't many people around that kind of time that were doing all these additional things, and so it was kind of like a really strong starting point to be in that position, bringing in strength and conditioning, like getting your weight right and cutting your weight down, and there was obviously a bit of bro science and that kind of thing to get back down, but like I say, it is what it is. It's something new that I kind of brought to the game.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm hearing you speak here, Rich, and it's like we're almost saying the same story. It feels exactly how it was for me as well. I had for me, it was actually American football here that I was playing, but that had the strength and conditioning side as well. And I loved the sort of technical and tactical part of the playbook side of that as well. But it was the fact that wasn't just the gameplay, it was everything you brought as an athlete to then, that was your foundation to then do the sport. And it was a completely different attitude to what I saw with people doing in martial arts, really. It was all about just practice the sport, just do more of the sport, and that will give you everything you need to succeed. And I found, just like you, almost there was a little bit of the opposite going on, in that you definitely need enough technical and tactical, but especially early on, it's like I could win fights not by being technically better, but just having a better engine than other people, and I could bull through what they were doing. And especially in a sport like Muay Thai, it was where its reward is effect, and you know, if you can keep your balance better and have more of an effect on your opponent, actually hurt them, then that having that athletic foundation is a really big part of it. And that was something I could see from my experience that I'd had outside of Muay Thai that was not being done in traditional Muay Thai training. And it sounds like that's very similar to what you've had, what you've seen, and what you've started to apply what you're doing. And I'm also interested, because also like me, you come from an engineering background professionally as well, which you have a different viewpoint on what you're doing. How have you found that has merged into what you were doing before and what you're doing now?
Kind of one of the things that I'd say that I embraced was this kind of, it was getting to a point where it's not always more is better. It's a case of, right, okay, well, I was getting to a point where, well, this is one of the stories. One night I was going out, and I'd like get down to the gym. I was jogging on a treadmill, and this guy came up and he got on the treadmill next to me, and he went 1 mile an hour faster. And so I was like, okay, we're playing that game, are we? I went 1 mile an hour faster than him. And then he went 1 mile an hour faster. And then the incline started going up. And then we was absolutely blasting it out, like both treadmills going as fast as they could at the highest incline. He looked over to me. He had a kind of wry grin on his face. I started laughing and everything as well. And then he started kind of going down. So he quit first, obviously. and so I started going down, and he was like, "Oh man, you're good. Like, what's your sport? What's your thing?" He says, "Oh, it's Thai boxing." It's like, "Oh, what's your sport?" He says, "Oh, marathon running." So he and says, "Yeah, I won the York Marathon last year. I'm just starting to ramp my training back up again. What kind of mileage are you doing a week?" And I says, "Well, I'm probably doing about kind of 40 miles a week. Like, I'll do like a 3-4 mile run like every morning. Then I'll run every night and everything." And it's like, wow, that's more than me. I was like, whoa, okay. So more isn't always necessarily better. It was a case of better's better, smarter's better. Let's train smarter. There must be a smarter way to go around this. And then this is when I started tapping into more with my like personal training, and I started having a chat with some personal trainers down at the local gym, and then I started embracing that kind of tuition myself and understanding more about kind of periodization and how to kind of structure a training plan and things like that. But a lot of these the personal trainers took me through like the beginnings of periodization, understanding like a strength block, a speed block, an endurance block, and things like that. And it was like, right, okay, so adaptation and this is how your body reacts, this is how your body responds. Now, right, okay, work on those small areas and then put it together when I'm in the Thai boxing gym. That figures, that's a smarter way around it. And that was my start. So it was kind of learning as I was doing. And that's what led to it. Yeah.
And I guess with the engineering side of things as well, it's you come from more like an evidence based kind of approach to things, don't you? Rather than like you mentioned earlier, bro science. There's so much, especially years ago, it was just like it's hearsay. It's almost like the bloke down the pub said, "This is the best way to do this." Oh right, off you go. Rather than checking it out and does it actually work? Does it work with not just the weird outliers who kind of anything makes them better? Does it work with everybody? And engineering has a bit more of that side of it. Have you felt that?
Yeah. So moving from being a fighter into coaching and having to kind of systemize the processes that we're going through. This is what's kind of tapped into the engineering background was right. Okay, well, I'm me, but does this work for everybody? Well, not everybody has the same level of intensity. Not everybody has the same level of drive. So how can I get the same adaptations with less enthusiasm? So like a lot of people don't want to do the morning runs. A lot of people don't want to go for a run before training. So how can I try and give them that same stimulus or put them in under enough stress in order to put that challenge to them? So like it's up to you whether you want to work harder. Well, you only want to work harder if you've been put in a horrible situation where you feel really unfit. Well, okay, if that's how you're feeling when you're feeling really unfit, then that's when you go, right, okay, I need more of this, I need more fitness. Right, okay, now it's the time to move forward and start having a look at those different programs, those different protocols.
And something you were talking about earlier, Rich, you were talking about these different sports that you've done, the different activities that you've done. So even surfing, I'd not heard that one at all before. So that was like a complete surprise for me today. But what I'm hearing is this all taps into something else that I know you're deep into, and it's flow state. It's activities that get you into flow, that get you out of your head and into the moment and performing at your best. And is that something you feel you've been chasing with your activities? Whether that's rugby, whether it's surfing or Muay Thai.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's one of those where, so take it back to the surfing experience. It was like when I was in Australia, I was surfing at a place called Talos Beach, which is there's a peninsula on the most eastern point of Australia called Byron Bay. It's a beautiful place. On one side there's Byron Bay, on the other side it's Talos Beach. Well, Talos Beach was a little bit kind of, they had bigger swells. It was a little bit more kind of gnarly, and the bottom of the under the waves and everything, there was a bit more of a coral reef, so there was a little bit more dangerous and stuff like that. And so obviously we had to go around there because there was more risk. And so when we went around there, went out, was paddling in one day. I sees a wave coming. I starts paddling. I pops up onto my board. My mate that was just going back out, he pointed over to the other side. So I was going down a left-hander. He says, "Look over there." So I looks down the wave, and there was like 3 or 4 dolphins jumping out of the wave in front of me. That happened for literally, it must have been a millisecond. But that image was imprinted, it's burnt into my mind as that kind of perfect surfing moment where I was like popped up on the board, looked across, sees these dolphins jumping out the front of the wave. I lost concentration, put weight on the front of my board and front ended it and splashed out. But like I said, that moment of looking across the wave and seeing the dolphins jumping out the front of the wave for literally a split second kind of cemented my my surfing experience. It's like the perfect moment. And that's what flow state's about, is like being in the moment, being present. And then as soon as I got into my own head of, wow, look at that, that's amazing, loss of concentration, splashed out. The very same thing happens in Thai boxing. You're there, you're moving, you land a beautiful shot, you go, wow, that was a good shot. Then you get hit back. It's like I say, it's sod's law. It's as soon as you get out of the moment and you recognize yourself being in the moment, that's when you lose it. So it's that kind of perpetual chase and that perpetual search for remaining in the moment at all times. And it's tough. It's tough, but that's the chase. That's the excitement.
And one of the things I've found, because have you heard of the guy, the author Steve Kotler? Have you heard of him with his books on flow state?
Yeah.
So one of the things I saw,
the Rise of Superman.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, all those books that he's got. But yeah, Rise of Superman's the one where he's talking about like extreme sport athletes. But one of the things he's talked about with people accessing flow is that he sees that there's like 4 kind of categories people find flow. And I've got it written down. I'm just going to get it up. So the first one that I think most people that do Muay Thai are going to relate to is hard charger. So it's those physical activities. It's pushing yourself to in that respect. So it's things like Muay Thai. It's like skydiving. It's all these kinds of things. And I think we can kind of feel like, okay, that's probably how we're finding flow. That's why we're drawn to these activities. And then the other one, or another one, is deep thinker. So that's where you're more introspective. It's researching stuff. It's writing. Then there's flow goer, which is more spiritual based. So it's yoga, meditation, people that find flow from doing that predominantly. And then the fourth one was crowd pleaser. So that's someone who likes presenting, singing, being up on stage, that kind of side of things. And what he's realized or noticed is that people tend to have like a primary category and a secondary category. And I know for me, when I've looked at it, I think earlier on, I was more of a hard charger. And I think as I'm aging, I'm my secondary category, which is deep thinker, where I'm just thinking about stuff, has become more of my dominant one, and hard charge has become my secondary one as I'm getting a bit older and I can't hard charge quite as much as I did for as long as I did. But I think that's fascinating in that it's probably what draws us to the things we're drawn to. It's how do we personally find flow, and you'll probably find it's one of those categories pretty much, with a little bit of a secondary aspect somewhere else. And it probably changes a bit over time as well. But does that sort of feel like it rings true for you as well? And perhaps you were a bit of a hard charger earlier on.
Well, quite possibly. But yeah, like living life on the edge and that kind of the Rise of Superman book, when it kind of explains like the element of risk in order to push the boundaries and push them goals. It's probably one of the things that like dragged me towards like the Vale Tudo World Championships, and saw that as the most extreme version. And then I found the Muay Thai video, and it said the most extreme ring sport in the world. Well, extreme, like now you're talking my language. It was that. Yeah, that's it. That I'm all in now. Like now we're talking extreme. Let's go. I mean, I've dabbled in a lot of extreme sports as well. So I've done skydiving. I've done bungee jumping. I've done some like pretty extreme kind of rock climbs and stuff like that. I've been over the biggest commercially run whitewater rafting waterfall in the world in New Zealand. I've done zorbing. I've done loads of those like extreme sports, and it's like I say, it's one of those where you're looking for that adrenaline spike all the time.
Yeah. And it's a moving goalpost, isn't it? That's the thing. Like you say, it does incrementally. You chase a bigger challenge all the time.
Yeah. But like I say, at the end of the day, you're always searching for that next buzz, that next big high. And I think this was possibly one of the reasons why I wanted to get back in the ring, because it was a challenge, because I've been out of the ring for so long. I mean, I've been out of the ring for pretty much 12 years. And that kind of little nagging question, have you still got it? Is it still there? It was one of those where I was wanting to go, yeah, I've still got it. Go on
then. But again, it was another opportunity to have a fair competition, wasn't it? Because both you guys that were competing, similar ages, similar experience as such, and it was a good fair test.
Yeah, I mean, Diego's been in with some really big names. So I got to the point where I was in the WMC world rankings. I was in the top 10 and never got in it. I think the highest I got was like a 3 or 4 in the world rankings. But the guys that were above me were people like Namsak Noi, Lam Namoon, and Diego had fought these guys. And I was like,
right.
I never quite got that opportunity to have those challenges. But Diego did. So it was like, right, okay, well, if that's the level that we're playing at. This is a legitimate challenge. It's one of those where I'm having to take it seriously. So let's go for it. It's like the challenge was the personal challenge all the way through. But then the final kind of hurdle was like a pressure test of that performance work that we've done for the 15 weeks preparation that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you find that 15 weeks of preparation? Obviously, you've been training other fighters since you stopped competing yourself, but this was your opportunity really to do the acid test on yourself and perhaps scale it a bit as well, because you are a bit older than a real youthful athlete that can tolerate more. You had to be more precise with exactly what you did when. What was that like, actually taking 15 weeks, trying to get a structured approach to what you're doing? And how did that feel different to what you used to do?
Well, I think we had this chat in the first couple of weeks. We chatted about structuring the strength conditioning program, and I was like, right, okay, well that's what Don's telling me to do, so I can do that on the evening. I'm used to doing like my 5Ks every morning before work and that kind of thing, so I'll just chuck them in as well. And yeah, I tried doing that in the first couple of weeks, and I knackered myself for about 3 days. It was just too much all in one go. So yeah, being able to kind of recognize that, feel the impacts, and go, yeah, I've just knackered myself just by trying to push too hard, too soon, too quick. Right, okay, I need to follow this structure a little bit more closely. I can't do what I used to do. I can't have that volume of training stress, and like I say, it's made me more sympathetic to my fighters and saying, look, well, if you can't have that, if you can't take that level of training stress, let's look at the volume. Let's have a look at the full week of training. Let's see where you're putting yourself under pressure. Let's have a look at the kind of RPE scale and training minutes, and that was the little bit of genius that I got from you. Was that little kind of Excel calculation between the RPE scale and then the minutes under load and that kind of thing, understanding the kind of high days, low days, and just that wider perspective, rather than just saying, yep, get out running, and it's well, I mean, like they say, there's no school like the old school, but at the end of the day, there's a time and a place to be applying the knowledge. The work rate is there. So work rate coupled with discipline, because now the challenge was to say, right, okay, you've done enough. Don't overcook it. Don't undo the good work that you've done by saying, well, I need a finisher. Well, those finishers, they finish you off. They undo all the good work that you've done when you've looked for the adaptation. Yeah. So, like, you're kind of undoing all that good work. That's, like I say, that's one of the big things I've taken from it.
Brilliant. And the other thing was as well that you were doing a really good job of monitoring your recovery. I think it was a Garmin you were using, wasn't it? Which had an HRV, heart rate variability.
Yeah.
But it's not just the training stress; it's what's going on outside of that. I mean, you had like a fraught trip to Moscow, didn't you? Just before everything kicked off in the Ukraine and Russia. It was literally just before that, and there was all that traveling stress that you had as well. And that obviously affects what you can tolerate in your training. And I thought that was a really good example, really, of what happens outside of your training also affects your training too.
Yeah. So it does all the heart rate variability and monitors your stress levels and monitors your sleep and gives you like the periods through your sleep with kind of light sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, monitors when you're awake. And then you get your little kind of green tick at the end of the day if you've had a good night's sleep, or it'll kind of rate the quality of your sleep in a percentage scale. So seeing how I may feel as though I've had enough sleep, then with jet lag kicking in and things like that, you start recognizing how that has an impact on your training stress.
Yeah. And sleep is one of those things. I mean, if you look at the research, it's like obvious. And actually, as an athlete, as a fighter, you know if you've been cutting corners on your sleep, everything starts to fall off. But there's loads of real discrete measurements that show you as soon as you're kind of cutting below 7 hours, your performance is going to drop off. Your recovery is not going to be what it should be. It means you can't push as hard in your training. Nutrition and sleep are those sort of things that we kind of disrespect. We want to do things, don't we? We want to work and be. That's what's responsible for making us better, and not just get better sleep or longer sleep.
Yeah,
but it's massive.
The guy that I followed for that was a guy called Matthew Walker. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep. He did done a podcast with Joe Rogan and on the Huberman Labs podcast. They did a real kind of deep dive into it. So with Joe Rogan, it was more kind of conversational, whereas in the Huberman Lab podcast, Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist, so they got into a lot of the detail on that. But yeah, like your sleep and your nutrition are probably 80-85% of your recovery protocols. So okay, there's a time and a place to be having your cryogenic sessions and having your sports massage and things like that. But if you're not taking the lion's share of your recovery seriously with your nutrition, with your sleep patterns, then all these like extra bits, extra like 1% here and there, it's like peeing in the ocean. You're not going to do anything. So yeah, you have to take that seriously. I'd kind of forgotten about the kind of post-fight come down, where your body's been in that kind of prepared state to compete, and then after the fight, that's when all the niggles come out. That's when all the little kind of aches and pains, because you're not firing on that adrenaline so much. And I did have a bit of a break straight after, so I went over to the Isle of Man TT.
I saw that. Yes.
Went over to watch the bike racing. But then, like, the first week back into this has been like, this is my second week back into kind of proper training, back in the gym and stuff like that. And now kind of the more kind of sports specific niggles are coming out. So the elbow from holding pads and a little bit of niggles on my wrist. So I mean, it's part of it. It's part of the gig. But we deal with it as we go.
It just shows that need for the progressive training, doesn't it? And that full cycle.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the godsends that we've had through this is kind of understanding the kind of sports therapy side of things and putting the kind of parasympathetic recovery sessions in there, sort of mindfulness towards the foam rollering and kind of specific stretching sessions and things like that. So I had a couple of niggles as we were going through the fight camp, and I was just of that mentality of like, right, okay, foam roller it and just grind the crap out of it. And we've got a new sports therapist that works at the gym. I had some calf problems. And so I got the foam roller stick and I was hammering my calf, and she's like, no, don't do that. Get on a massage ball, massage out the feet and all that kind of business. And literally within a couple of sessions, all of a sudden my calf pain had gone because I was massaging my feet, and I was struggling to kind of correlate the two, because the pain was in my calf, but I was massaging my foot.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that kind of fascia stuff and all the kind of referred pain and all that kind of business. So
yeah,
we've now actually introduced that as a specific session down at the gym.
Right, interesting. And do you know what? Feet are a massive part of Muay Thai, and it's that connection to the floor. It's where you generate all your power. We're barefooted as well. We haven't got all orthotics and that sorting us out. Feet, we just need to look after those. I know I posted a video on YouTube about using a tennis ball in the sole of the foot and how you can kind of open up the foot and create more space in there. And the short foot exercise as well that makes the arch of the foot stronger so you don't end up with the flat feet. And that's been a really popular one, actually, and a really overlooked area.
Linking together that with... I think you sent us a couple of videos through, and then I got some stuff from... the supple leopard guy,
yes. Kelly Starrett, yes,
the Ready State, the Ready State on Instagram, Kelly Starrett.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, on one of my friends actually wrote the supple leopard book with him.
Oh, really?
A guy called Glenn Cordoza. I met him over in Thailand. And he's done a lot of instructional books. He's worked with kind of BJ Penn, Randy Couture. Like you have a look at some of the MMA books that are out there, and Glenn's probably worked with him. That's been his gig, and I actually met him out in Thailand. So yeah, there's a strange kind of reconnection there.
And you're obviously still evolving as a fighter, for God's sake. That's been happening recently, but also as a coach. And like it's why do you still, I guess, not still fighting now? It's kind of like it was the last dance is how you're describing it, wasn't it? But why is it you're still coaching and doing all these things that you do and still feel like you're progressing like that?
Because I think there's all the new science that's coming out. There's I want to be the guy that I didn't have. I want to be able to help people and give people advice to make their journeys easier and more productive and hit their peaks and reach their potential. That's what I'm looking to push now. And yes, okay, I might get the odd carrot dangle to pull the gloves on again. Like the promoters are already been private messaging me and stuff. But at the moment, I'm just gonna kind of leave it there, and it has to be something kind of special to maybe draw me out. But like I say, evolving as a fighter, one of the so the Huberman Labs podcast that I was telling you about the other day, telling you about earlier, I watched a new one yesterday with Ido Portal.
Yes,
he was the movement coach. He did some work with Conor McGregor and stuff like that. I did a Instagram post about it. It was about the power of incompleteness. And it's that kind of Japanese calligraphy circle where it's almost a circle, it's almost complete, but they never quite get there. It never quite closes the loop. And this is where I feel as though I'm enjoying my life and my journey as a coach in the fact that we're trying to find that tipping point, find where that the biggest value is, understanding where the low hanging fruit is, what are the actionable things that we can do in order to give you that continual 1% change, 1% change, 1% increase each and every time we train. We look for little tweaks here and there, and that's what coaching is. We're looking at the long game. There's no quick fixes in this. You always have to be searching for that 1% every single time.
Yeah. And do you know what's popping into my head there, Rich, is that that continuous loop that doesn't quite close. It's that eternal beginner's mindset that I don't know it all. There's new stuff, and the deeper I look at stuff, the more nuance I see in what I thought I knew and I don't, or even what we thought we knew with research and science is like, yeah, do you know what? We've found actually that model that we were basing it on, it's not quite right. It's more like this now. It's always evolving. And I like that sort of 80-20 Pareto rule that 20% of what we do is the priority stuff that gets 80% of the results. But every time you improve something, you've still got that ratio of 80-20, and still 20% of even the good stuff you were doing was actually the stuff that was getting the results. So you can always keep recycling and going, looking deeper and looking deeper. So of that 20%, what was the 20%? Of that 20%, what's the 20%? And that's the stuff that keeps moving you forwards. And it sounds like that's the kind of attitude you've got as well, where you're just continue re-examining what you're already doing, but what's new as well.
Layers of an onion. Layers of the onion.
Keep digging at those layers.
Yeah, there's always another layer, and that's one of the things that I'm enjoying at the moment. So I've got some kind of protocols kind of put in place to teach my guys how to like manage the fight in a kind of smarter way. But now I'm getting to a stage now where we've been going through that for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. And people are kind of working out how to deal with that. Okay, so now my process is right. Okay, now people are understanding what's the answer. Okay, what's the antithesis to that answer? And this is where the thinking is kind of keeps you on that growth edge.
Yeah. So with growth, with the different fighters, what do you feel are the most important traits or characteristics for a champion to have from your perspective, with not only yourself but the people that you've worked with?
Probably the most important factor, I would say, is emotional intelligence. We need to get to a point where, like, in this game, everybody's tough. Toughness only takes you so far. So basing your fight strategy around being tough, well, people who lean on that don't tend to last too long. They're like fireworks; they'll come and they'll go. And one of the things around that is that you need to be smart with your training. You have to be smart with your fight strategies, and it gets to a point where when you're looking for that kind of ultimate answer, that's where the evolution of the sport kind of rolls. It's like a cloud. There's no kind of solid structure to say, right, this is a fight. This is how you put your structure in place to deal with that fight. Because as soon as you put a structure in place, that's when it changes. So this is what keeps the evolving job of a coach, to stay on that cutting edge and keep the finger on the pulse to see how the game and the strategy is evolving, but also having the smartness and the savvy to say, right, okay, well, if he's focusing more on body kicking, what's the answer to that? I'm either managing the distance or I'm going to make it miss and look for the counter shots. This is where the technique then comes into play. So, like toughness is a prerequisite. The ultimate answer always has to come back to technique, because there's no glass ceiling to technique. There's a glass ceiling to toughness.
Right. Yeah. And that emotional intelligence, you always hear, I actually posted something about this on social media as well. There's fight IQ, and that's sort of the technical and tactical side, but there's also EQ, the emotional quotient, which is the emotional intelligence, and it's that side of things as well, where you are, I guess, more honest with yourself about how you're feeling, how you respond to things, and it's knowing yourself better, isn't it? Rather than almost being tough is like, well, I hide that stuff, rather than go, no, what's really going on? What distracts me internally when I'm doing these things? What are my patterns of behaviour that way? And I guess with your background as a sort of performance coaching and the mindset coaching, that sort of side of it is equally kind of your game, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think there has to be a vulnerability to yourself when I'm approaching these things. If you're not comfortable in order to say, like, maybe my recognize what my strengths are, but also admitting my weaknesses. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, it got to a point where I was admitting I'm 45 years old. I can't be doing the kind of stuff that I was doing when I was 25 years old. But at the end of the day, you start recognizing, well, if this is where I'm starting and this is my kind of fight performance level, can I still have that same leap? Can I still have that same differential? And this is what gave us it's been able to kind of play with those stats, I suppose. Like, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's how you want to play with those numbers. And I think this was one of the journeys that I've kind of been through myself in the fact that you need to be able to recognize your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and then what's the expectation of a step up through fight training, through a fight camp.
Yeah. And with all of this, it's you're gonna hit obstacles, aren't you? You're gonna hit setbacks, and it's how you sort of bounce back from those, how you learn from those. But I'd be interested to know what you feel have been your sort of greatest challenges or obstacles, and what you've learned from those.
I mean, probably one of the biggest challenges has been kind of accepting I'm not where I was. One of the biggest challenges was being able to take a step back, but then also managing my own kind of mental health around that, to say, well, are these people supporting me, and start getting into that kind of almost over-analysis, overthinking, breeding anxiety. It gets to a point where sooner or later you just have to go, well, it's on the schedule, that work gets done. And then lean into the process and being able to trust the process. And there's a reason why there's people like yourself doing your job, because there's science behind what you're telling people. It's the intelligence behind it. It's not just an opinion. And so being able to embrace what those challenges are. How are you going to answer that call when push comes to shove? Are you gonna crumble? Are you gonna fall back and just say, well, maybe I'm not as strong as I thought I was, or are you gonna lean into it and go, I'm not gonna let that happen today? Because the thing is that like quite a few times through, right at the start of the fight camp, I had a lot of people going, you shouldn't be doing this. You're 45 years old. You're 20 kilos out of shape. You've been out of the ring for 12 years. Like, all these things, all that, like, if it was me saying that, yeah, it probably would have beaten up my confidence and ground me down a little bit. But the fact that it was someone else saying that was just fuel for the fire. That was just motivation to me. For people to say that I couldn't do it served as motivation. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to show that guy. I'm going to show him this is possible. I'm going to achieve it. I'm going to step up.
Brilliant. It's great to have those kind of those goals to aim at, isn't it? You know, the goal setting part of the process. Yeah. Once you've got, I mean, there is nothing like having a fight date to sort yourself out.
Well, yeah, this is it. Like, well, to be honest, that's one of the reasons why it kind of came about. Was I was doing all these kind of Facebook challenges and stuff like that. See how many burpees you could do in a month. See how many press ups you could do in a month. Chin ups in a month. And like, as soon as I'm a disciplined guy, so as soon as I said, right, this is the schedule, this is what has to get done. You get up in the morning, you do the set amount, and you say, right, okay, I've done the calculations. By the end of the month, I'm gonna have done my 2,000, I'm gonna have done my 3,000 press ups, whatever. But it was getting to that point, and I was going, well, there was no dopamine hit at the end of it. There was no reward at the end of it. It was like, you lean into the system, you do the calculations, you do the work, you achieve your goal, and it almost becomes an expectation. Well, because it's expected, there was no like dopamine fix at the end of it. There was no celebration. There was no like conquering. There was no like standing on top of the hill with my arm aloft, saying that I've won, that I've done it. It was just a case of, well, you did the calculations, you broke it down. It's an achievable task. Get it done. That's it. Move on to the next one. Like, where's the celebration? Where's the reward? And this is what we were saying, leaning into these flow finders, well, like the flow archetypes. When you're wanting that reward, and then there's no one cheering for you, you're like, I didn't get any flow from that. I didn't get any reward from it. There was no dopamine fix from that. Right, okay. What can I do that gives me that dopamine fix? A fight. Yeah. Having a challenge at the end of it, where there's a potential of loss, there's a potential of failure. Like getting your ass kicked in front of your friends and family and your kids and everything is one hell of a motivator. And it was that thing where I was always going back to it, and saying, well, that's what has to be done. Right, okay, now I've ticked the boxes, I've done the work. Was that attendance, or have I really put some effort in there? And out of all my strength and conditioning sessions, I never once crawled out of there. I was never broken when I was coming out of my strength and conditioning sessions. But leaning into the training, recognizing that adaptation and the fantastic balance of minimal dose response meant that I was able to get that step up in performance without breaking, and that's what the coaching's about.
Yes, yeah, and what you're saying about the like a relevant challenge as well to kind of spur all that on. When we've been talking about flow state, it's a big part of what you do as well. But it is to hit flow, you actually need to exceed your current ability just a bit, don't you?
Yeah,
something like 105% or something was the number that came. 104% was it? Right, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and or another bit of really nice research I saw was that you should be expecting to succeed about 85% of the time. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So failing 15% of the time. If you're kind of a bit too either side of that, then you're either not doing enough, not pushing yourself enough to grow the most, or it's too much of a challenge. And is that kind of how you felt about this particular goal of the fight? Was like, I'm about 85% that I could do this. That's near enough for me, and that's going to strive me to.
Well,
to push.
I mean, like, I think every time within training, I probably hit 100% challenge each time, and I probably had more than 15% failure with some of the lads that I was training with. I mean, Joe Craven and James France and the lads down at Bad Company, they weren't messing around. They gave us a bit of a kicking like through the sparring sessions and stuff. I mean, hell, like in the first couple of weeks, I got dropped heavily in sparring. A couple of weeks before the fight, I think maybe it was a broken rib, maybe it was a badly bruised rib, and that was one of the things that was kind of on my mind during the fight. Happened a couple of weeks before, and it was enough to. It didn't fully drop me. It was enough to kind of disengage, like holding my ribs. Then all of a sudden, like a couple of days gone by, like I was still getting a little niggle in there. I was like, yeah, there's something going on there. And so those challenges in training, I think what you'll find with a lot of fighters, certainly with the guys over in Thailand as well, the training, the fight's the easy bit. The fight's actually the easy bit. In training is sometimes a lot harder. It's a lot more challenge. I would say maybe getting down to even 60%. A 60% win, 40% of the time you're losing. Like, right, okay, you've got to step it up, got to push. And if you're too comfortable through that, then I would say that those figures may change depending on what sport or what challenges that you're faced with. Because certainly when you're stepping into a combat arena, like knowing that you face some absolute monsters builds your confidence to know that you can deal with any challenge that's ahead of you in the ring.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I'm not gonna, like, Diego wasn't a Joe Craven. That's the balance, the comparison that I was having. So yeah, it was certainly a tough challenge through training, and probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed the fight so much. I'm sure you watched the video. I don't think I stopped smiling through the whole fight. I was just enjoying it so much in there, and there was at no point that I was under any concern or particularly tested at that point. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the enjoyment was, is that I could just stay laughing and playing my game and being able to kind of sit in my game, as opposed to seeing it as a fight where it's a 50-50.
Yeah, and that challenge starts to create extra stresses in what you can see and what you can do. Yeah. I'd love to know, Rich, if you could go back in time and change anything about your approach to either training or coaching, what that would be. If there was something you could do sooner that you found later.
I think it's the acceptance that not everyone wants it as much as I do. Like, I would move heaven and earth. I've deprioritized. Like, I've put the priority of going training above going to a funeral. I've put the priority of training above going to friends' parties and birthday parties and stuff. Like, I was literally obsessed. And yeah, okay, that may seem a bit out of balance, and you don't achieve things by being in balance. But certainly understanding that, having that awareness that not everyone wants it as much as I wanted it or want it, is a big one, because I think that's caused me a lot of stress as a coach, trying to understand why people aren't training every night. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're only training twice a week. Well, what you're doing the other 5 nights a week? Like, just totally misunderstanding where people's drive is, and getting to a point of going, well, like I say, you can take a horse to water, you can't make it drink. You can do all the things that you can tell people what to do. They don't have to do it, but don't be surprised by the results that you're getting from the work that you didn't do. This is where the juggle comes in. It is a juggle. It is a balance. But I think one of the things that kind of differentiated me was my levels of obsession. And like, I gave up all my 20s. I didn't have one holiday through my 20s. I just spent all my time either working or going out to Thailand. The kids in Thailand said, "Oh, Richard, no holiday. Richard, no holiday." It was like, what? It was like, a change is as good as a rest. And so it was one of those where, okay, get in there, you do your work, and that's what it is. I gave up my party years to get to where I want to be, and it's made for some great stories, and being able to kind of now pass this on as a coach. Okay. And also, I was a bit of a weirdo, wanting to give up my party years for so long. But that's what it takes if that's what you want to, if that's the level that you want to get to. So I'm just pleased that I've been able to get the opportunities that I've got through Richard Smith and through GT over in Thailand.
Brilliant. And if you were to give like one piece of advice to someone who wants to be as great as they could be, what would that be?
I've got it written on the board at the gym, is that 9 times out of 10, training volume is the number one differentiator. It's only when you're hitting those glass ceilings that you recognise that there's alternative ways to go. Don't look for the shortcut. Sit in it until you're absolutely on that cusp, and then that's when you'll find your learning. Whether it's through research, whether it's through additional coaches, whether it's through, I mean, the availability of information now on Google, through YouTube and Instagram and all these different coaches that are out there. Yes, the answers are there. But I think everyone's looking for that quick fix when at the end of the day, people still need to sit in and still do the hard graft, still do the basics and get the basic stuff done well. So that's probably what I would say, is that a lot of people need to just work on that training volume as a starting point.
Yeah. You've got to sit in it long enough and not just bail and move to the next shiny thing. You've got to grind the result from what you're doing.
Like I said, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for that grind. There's a time and a place for that to sit in it. And then when you turn around and go, well, I've been doing this now for 6 months. Have you seen the benefit? Yeah. Okay, keep doing it. I've been doing this for 8 months. You seen the benefit? Yeah, but I've hit a plateau. Okay, you're recognising your plateau, right? Okay, well, these are some subtle things that we can change, and then that's where you're going to find your answers.
Brilliant, love it. Thanks, Rich. Really appreciate you sharing some of that experience from all these different aspects that you had crammed into both your fighting and your coaching career. Really, really appreciate you sharing the time with me, mate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on.
You can follow Rich on Instagram @RichCadden and follow Chokdee Gym @chokdee.gym. And Rich is on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And check out the gym website, chokdeeacademy.co.uk. And as usual, you'll find links to all of these with this episode.
Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and share with someone else it could help too. Please give the podcast a review or comment below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, you can visit Heatrick.com for more Muay Thai performance podcasts, videos, articles, and guides. Catch you next time.